Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the launch of the 2025 UK State of Scams report. My name is Simon Miller. I'm Director of Policy Strategy and Communications at Cifas, the UK's leading fraud prevention service. And together with our partners at Tietoevry Banking, we are the proud sponsors of the GASA UK State of Scams report. We're joined today by an expert panel who I will introduce shortly. But before I do that, a few words about the agenda and housekeeping. So in terms of the agenda, we do have a slight change. We're not able to be joined today by our CEO, Mike Haley. He's been called away, but he will be capably deputised for by Mark Courtney, who joins us today. Mark, say hello, who is Chief Product Officer here at Cifas.
Good morning.
You'll shortly hear from Mark, but after Mark, you will hear from Yuri Abraham, who is Managing Director of the Global Anti-Scams Alliance, who will talk to the detail of the report. And then we're joined by Metalisa Engel, who is the Head of Defence at Tietoevry Banking, who will provide, I guess, a Scandinavian lens, looking at the experience and lessons there and applying that to the UK context and the UK experience. This session will last for about 55 minutes. There will be Q&A towards the end. If you do want to ask a question, please put that in the chat function in the bottom right-hand corner of the question, and we'll collate those and put them to the panel a little later. We will also have journalists on today's call, so please keep that in mind. Everything that is said by us and by you will be on the record. So keep that front and center of mind when posting comments or asking questions as well. But without any further ado, let me bring in Mark Courtney, Chief Product Officer at Cifas, who's going to talk to the UK context. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Simon, and good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to the launch of the State of Scams UK 2025 report, together with GASA and our co-sponsor, Tietoevry. I'm Mark Courtney, as Simon said, Chief Product Officer at Cifas, the UK's leading fraud prevention service. The State of Scams report, along with our Fraudscape reports, is one of the most significant data releases of the year, widely anticipated by policymakers, fraud experts, and the media. This year is no different. I'm delighted to be here with Yuri Abraham, Managing Director at the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, and Metalisa from Tietoevry. Before we start, though, I want to provide some context to the UK report and a Cifas perspective. We are here because scams are here. In the foreword to last year's report, we wrote that the UK was in the middle of a scams emergency. Sad truth is that has not changed. The threat posed by scams and the organised crime gangs who perpetrate them to organisations, people, and the economy, both here and abroad, is not going away. As this report sets out, anyone can be a victim of a scam, and most of us are lucky if we haven't been already. Without preempting Yuri, the numbers are stark. 9.4 billion lost to scams in the past year. 76% of adults encountered a scam during that time. And 20% of adults lost money to scams in the last 12 months, with £879 stolen by scammers per average on person. These numbers are also reflected in our filings to the National Fraud Database. In 2024, these rose by 13% to over 421,000 cases, the highest volume ever recorded in a single year. Our data for the first 6 months of 2025 suggests that this record will be exceeded again this year. Scams have not only become more industrialised, but digitised and delivered at astonishing scale across multiple channels. The services that enable us to stay connected also expose us to criminals. AI, deepfakes, and synthetic identities and real-time manipulation of biometric systems are supercharging the work of the scammer. AI has lowered the barriers to entry for criminals and increased the emotional and financial toll on victims. It's important to forget these scammers are part of an international business. These scammers are part of an international business. Organised criminal gangs now mimic the size and structure of many large corporations. Scam factories in Southeast Asia, West Africa house hundreds of enslaved workers working in appalling conditions, criminalising the vulnerable and economically insecure, and forcing them to build and operate a sophisticated infrastructure of call centres and websites intended to steal people's money. But behind the figures, there is good news. In the UK, the fight against fraud is well underway. Regulatory change and the appointment of the UK's first dedicated minister with responsibility for fraud are changing the policy landscape. A new fraud strategy is expected shortly. Industry and law enforcement are increasingly working together to share data and insight to close vulnerabilities. Our role at Cifas, like that of GASA, is to empower organisations and partners in this fight. We continue to innovate in the fraud prevention space, developing new tools that help organisations identify emerging risks in real time, more and more sharing real-time intelligence across sectors, and prevent the re-victimisation of fraud victims. As a non-for-profit membership organisation, we unite almost 800 public and private sector organisations in a shared mission to detect, deter, and prevent fraud and scams. At the heart of our approach is the power of cross-sector collaboration. By bringing together organisations from financial services, retail, telecoms, lending, gambling, fintech, payments, government, and more, we are creating a unified front against criminal activity. Data sharing is the lifeblood of this work, and through secure and effective exchange of data and intelligence, our members are empowered to act swiftly and decisively. But we are more than a data and intelligence sharing platform. Together with GASA, with partners like GASA and Tietoevry, we are a community of organisations committed to protecting people, businesses, and the public purse on a UK and global scale. We believe together we can meet these challenges ahead and collectively build a safer and more resilient society free from fraud and scams. In a moment, Yuri will take you through some significant and disturbing findings. These help paint a clearer picture of the scams landscape, reveal the true extent of just how much British consumers are losing to criminals, while also revealing the emotional impact this has on victims. Before I do hand over to Yuri to introduce this year's report, please remember, as Simon set out at the outset, to post your questions in the chat. Yuri, thanks again for being with us this morning, and now over to you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Let me share my screen. Give me 1 minute. So again, thank you very much for having me. And I'm very happy that, again, we publish this report together as we have done also in the last few years. A little bit about the Global Anti-Scam Alliance. We are a non-profit organization, and our mission is to protect consumers worldwide from scams. And we do that by bringing together all the stakeholders on a global level: banks, telecom operators, governments, law enforcement, the social media, and big tech companies. Every year we do a study, a global study amongst approximately 46,000 consumers worldwide, asking them about their scam experience. We have done this study since 2020. We always we started with asking law enforcement and governments in as many countries as possible, but unfortunately the data is not of a high quality because many people don't report scams to law enforcement. It's very fragmented, and in many countries there's no data available at all. So that's the reason for the last 3 years we actually asked the consumer about their experience with scams in the last 12 months. In the United Kingdom, we have spoken to 2,000 people, and the data I'm showing you is the national representative sample for British adults. In our study, we divided our work in 4 different areas. Scam encounters: how often are consumers encountering scams? What is their experience with the scam? What is the impact? And finally, scam prevention. And some of the slides will have two kinds of data. The European one based on several European countries, and the United Kingdom in orange for the UK data. So one of the first findings I wanted to share with you is how often we are now being approached by scammers. 76% of the British adult population has received a message from a scammer, and that can be a phone call, a text message, WhatsApp, an ad on a social media platform. We are continuously being bombarded, and more people actually are receiving even multiple times a day a scam message. We estimate, based on the data we received, that in the United Kingdom, 168 messages are received by UK citizens. And this is way higher than in Europe. But very honestly, if you compare it to United States, in the United States, this number is nearly double. So is it good? No, it's not good, but it can be worse. We also see, I mean, we used to believe that especially elderly people were targeted by scammers because of their internet literacy and often the availability of a lot of money in their pension funds. That is, for the last few years, clearly no longer the case. We see now especially younger people, Generation Z, millennials, losing more money, being scammed more often. I'm also, unfortunately, I have to report that men are being scammed way more than women, especially in investment scams. And people with a higher education living in urban areas are scammed more than average. So the entire belief that this is especially for people with a low education or a bit more elderly is really no longer the case. And I personally believe everybody can get scammed. And if you haven't been scammed in your life, then you probably haven't lived. You haven't taken any risks. You haven't been fast at one moment. I really think that everybody can get scammed. What is very sad to note is we also asked the participants if their children were approached by scammers, and 16% of the British parents said, yes, my child has been approached. And that's probably a very low figure because not all children will communicate this to their parents, or they find it out too late that daddy's credit card or mama's PayPal account has been used by a scammer because the child was playing a nice game and a nice person asked for the details. One of our biggest challenges I think we have is, and this is a global problem, is the level of confidence we have in ourselves. 84% of the UK population believes that or feels confident in that they can recognize scams. And this is a way higher number than the global average of 73%. I don't know why people in the UK feel more confident, especially millennials and men. But it doesn't help because if people are confident, then they do not believe that they need to be more aware about scams, let alone be educated about scams because they're good. They can recognize scams. So this is one of, I think, our major challenges is to break down the level of confidence and make people not only more aware about it, but also get the message across it can happen to everybody, including you. If we look at the types of scams, we see that the UK is more or less in line with the rest of the world. Online shopping scams, where you order a product and you never receive it, or you receive a fake, or even something which has nothing to do with what you ordered, but then the scammer can tell the payment method, I delivered the product. Online shopping scams are the most common in the UK. Followed very closely by identity theft, unexpected money, where you suddenly have an inheritance or are winning a lottery, and investment scams are following closely. I'm very concerned about the investment scams. Globally, we see that the investment scams are growing, and while with an online shopping scam, the victim might lose 30, 40, maybe £100. With investment scams, these amounts are way higher, often up to the 20, 30, 50,000 pounds or more. So that's a concern, and I hope that this trend will not continue next year. As Mark was already saying, we estimate that in the United Kingdom, 9.4 billion pounds was lost in scams. Again, here we see that especially millennials are losing more money, and especially people who said, I can always recognize a scam. They lose the most money on average. So again, confidence is a challenge we need to cover. We also asked how did you pay the scammer? And there we see that credit cards, debit cards, bank transfer are the most popular might be the wrong word, but the most common method to pay the scammer. We do see a large role for crypto. It might not be the most popular method to use by getting money from the victim, but once the scammer has a lot of money in a bank account, we see that crypto is being used to hide the trace. The money is being converted into crypto. It's broken up in very small payments and spread across the world to hide the trail of money. What is interesting to see where the UK is very different compared to many other countries is that people mostly report to commercial organizations. I was a little bit surprised. I mean, I know there are mixed feelings about action fraud, but compared to the rest of the world, I think action fraud actually is a very good example of how you can make it easier to report scams. Still, only 9% said they used the national reporting website. While reporting to financial institutions with 26% is way more popular, also way more popular than reporting it to friends and family and social media. Here we see huge differences. In Asia, friends and family are actually one of the most common ways to share I have been scammed. We also asked, okay, what are the barriers for reporting? Because we know that people are hesitant to report. And also here, I'm a little bit surprised. I was unsure who to report it to. Well, you do have action fraud, and people are reporting a lot to the banks. 24% of the people said that not being sure where to report made them not report the scam at all, which is a pity because we need that data. We need that data to find the scammers. Another issue is I did not think my report would make any difference, with 25% of the persons listing this as a reason. This is a real concern, and I do understand it. I'm Dutch, and the police in the Netherlands, which by the way are great guys, they are very open in saying in 95% of the cases, I'm sorry, you reported this scam to us. The scammer is abroad. The amount is relatively low. We cannot help you. Which on the one hand is very fair to communicate to the victim, because then at least he or she knows what is not going to happen. It also is not motivating. And I really think we need to work on this and make sure that every report is being treated and is being used to, in the end, catch the scammer. We also asked why the person was scammed. And here we see a huge shift in trends. It used to be I acted too fast to recognize the deceit, or I was attracted to the offer. These reasons dropped significantly in the last year. And now the primary reason is the scam was very realistic, believable. We're not sure if AI is behind it. Mark briefly already discussed the rise of AI in the use of scams to make the scam more legit, more believable. But I would not be surprised. And I fear that this number will grow over the next few years. We also asked which methods are you using to check if a website is legit or a scam? And here we're in trouble. Checking spelling and grammar mistakes are often being used. The rule, if it's too good to be true, it probably is being applied. And these rules no longer work. I mean, spelling and grammar errors, we see that the scammers are using AI to make their perfect emails, perfect messages, even better than even better than in general is being used. So we have to be very careful on the rules or the checks we communicate to consumers, because these rules often no longer apply. I mean, in my own country, we currently have a campaign running where we say a scammer will never use his real face. It's not true. Especially in romance scams, we see a lot of scammers using their real face because they know they will never be caught. They're abroad in a jurisdiction which makes it very hard to catch them. Or they use deepfake. So we have to be very careful with giving simple rules to recognize scams, because these rules often do not apply, or it only takes a year before technology has caught up. Finally, one of the questions we also ask is, who do you believe is responsible for keeping you safe, and how are they doing? And there we see that online platforms are believed to be responsible by the people, followed by the hosting company and the government. And here there's also room for improvement. We see that the government, the website hosters, and the online platforms need to improve according to our panel. Interesting to see is that financial protection authorities and banks are actually doing quite well according to our panel. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation and give the floor back to Mark. Thank you very much.
I'll come in here, Yuri, if I may, just to bring Meta-Lisa in. Thank you so much for that. There's so much rich data in there. And I think both us as a panel and attendees will look forward to discussing that shortly. So Meta-Lisa, without any further ado, over to you to add your vast experience of Scandinavian fraud prevention to this UK report and provide a bit of a compare and contrast. Thank you.
Yes, thank you and good morning, and thank you for the interesting run through. My name is Meta-Lisa, and while we wait for the presentation, I can give you a quick rundown of Tietoevry. There we have it. Thank you very much. So, Tietoevry is a company listed on the Nasdaq exchange in Helsinki and Stockholm, as well as on Oslo Børs. Tietoevry Banking is a specialized business unit within Tietoevry. And Tietoevry Banking is a market-leading software provider to the financial sector in the Nordics and beyond. And we offer modular, pre-integrated banking-as-a-service solutions and market-leading software for core payments, credits, cards, financial fraud, and wealth. In Tietoevry Banking, we enable secure and resilient, trusted financial ecosystems for banks, regulators, and society at large. So sponsoring the GASA report is an aligned extension of this mission, and it's important for a number of reasons. One, advancing the collective intelligence against financial crime. Financial crime is borderless, and it's getting increasingly sophisticated. So independent and data-driven research brings together different actors to share knowledge, spot trends early, and develop coordinated responses. This report is a catalyst for cross-sector dialogue and action, which is imperative in the fight against fraud. Another reason is strengthening trust in the digital economy, because trust is the foundation of digital banking and payments. When scams increases, consumer confidence decreases and the ecosystem suffers. So it's important to contribute to research and awareness in the notion of safeguarding digital trust. And lastly, I would like to mention the importance of supporting societal resilience. Scams are not just a financial issue or an issue related to trust. They're a societal challenge impacting mental health, and we need more research and public education on the topic to contribute to a safer, more resilient society. And now, for the business area within Tietoevry Banking that I represent, financial crime prevention. The financial crime prevention area has more than 25 years of experience within the financial crime prevention area. And within what we call FCP, we have the Defense Center, which is a 24/7 operational unit that has the goal to detect, stop, and prevent financial crime by combining the best of technological and human capabilities. Our operation monitors transaction in real time and blocking any suspicious activity and initiating direct customer contact, that is the customer of the bank, to validate any suspicious transaction. We maintain operative feedback loops, enabling continuous adjustment and keeping us one step ahead of the fraudsters. I usually say they're good, but we're better. And from our operation, we have the key fraud trends. One, phishing. From 2023 to 2024, we've seen an increase in phishing cases by 77%. And within phishing, you have a subcategory called SMS phishing, aka smishing. And in the smishing subcategory, we have so far in 2025 surpassed last year's volumes by 50%. And we also know that there are technological capabilities that we believe can mitigate the vulnerabilities that are utilized in this fraudulent activity. And the trend social manipulation has increased from 23 to 24 by 156%, with methods that are becoming increasingly sophisticated and complex. Yuri, you mentioned AI deepfake. Yes, we're experiencing that. And it includes a long-term romance scam, investment fraud, and also sextortion. And trend number 3, rogue merchant. Rogue merchant is a term that we use to describe a business or an individual that intentionally engages in fraudulent activities while appearing to operate as a legitimate merchant. In the GASA report context, unexpected money scam and shopping scam is within this term. And we have seen a significant increase the last year in this category. So our defenses against rogue merchant are based on the competence that we do have, and also a collective effort from the network that we're in with our customers. Slide, please. Thank you. The fight against crime is a 24/7, 365 operation that requires continuous improvement and adjustment. And we take pride in the work we do, knowing the impact that it has on society. To put it in perspective, we process and monitor 10 million card transactions daily, and we reject over 25,000 card transactions on the suspicion of fraud. And those 25,000 rejections amount to 2.83 million euros. And that's on a daily basis. Slide, please. Thank you. It's more important than ever that we utilize our capabilities as a contribution to the collective fight against financial crime. For instance, we leverage our insights gained from one single customer's fraud experience to proactively safeguard all clients across our network. And this collaborative approach delivers a distinct advantage to every organization we serve. And with a hopefully fruitful collaboration and initiative cross sectors that opens up for data sharing, we can all make a greater impact together that serves the society as a whole. Thank you. And now it's over to you, Simon.
Thank you so much, Meta-Lisa. What a fascinating presentation. We have a large number of questions coming in through the chat. Again, because there's so many of you on this call, I'm going to briefly bring some of them together and aggregate them. Yuri, can we start with you? We've published this report for a number of years together. There are trends that you will see over the longer and shorter term. But what in this year's figures are most surprising to you that really stand out?
I think two things. One is the very high level of confidence UK citizens have. To just give you comparison, I mean, in Japan, so in the UK, the figure is over 80. In UK, the level of confidence people have in recognizing scams is less than 40 in Japan. So, and that's really something I think we should address. The other thing which I find very concerning is the reason people report that they have been scammed. It always used to be the offer was great, I went for it, or I acted too fast. And that has changed into I really believed in the legitimacy of the offer. Scammers are getting very, very, very good. I mean, they use AI, but as Mark was also saying, it's organized crime, and they're professionalizing, and we see that in some of the scam compounds which have been rolled up, there are actually departments in the building where they focus on a specific kind of scam or a specific target group, with even signs at the door saying China, Singapore, Australia. So they focus on specific target groups or specific kinds of scams. And that makes it hard. I mean, it used to be online shopping scams used to be easy. It was 50% discount. Okay, that might be a little bit too good. Now they're very smart and they offer the price 1 or 2% lower. That's impossible for consumer to recognize as a scam.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Mark, can I bring in you to that question as well? I see at Cifas we sit on a whole world of data that sits alongside and augments the scam report data. But what in this have you found surprising?
I think for me, Yuri mentioned around the confidence of the British public to spot a scam again, and I think that's the one for me there that really stands out. Really, I think is the concern of how because AI is, and as Yuri mentioned, the spellings and everything like that. That problem is going away for the scammers with AI. So I think if everyone's that confident, I'm really concerned. I think the other piece is around the reporting as well. So people still not knowing where to report. I think we have multiple phone numbers and areas to send these things when we see them. People aren't remembering. So I think there's a piece for us as a fraud community wider to think about how we bring that all together.
I think you've almost preempted my next question there, which takes account of a number of questions that we've had in on technology and emerging technologies. I think it would be remiss for us to do one of these webinars and not talk about AI, but really keen to get your views on how AI impacts these figures, but also how it's impacting the community. And I think something that's often forgotten is actually the benefit that it has to the fraud prevention community as well, both friend and foe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from a point of view of foe, I think from what I'm hearing and what I feel at the moment is actually there isn't still a huge requirement to use AI for the scammers. They can get through with more simple techniques still, but the option is there now, and the ability with agentic AI coming to scale those operations to a level we've never seen before is there. We know from some of our members we've spoken to, 1 million attacks overnight, and that speaks of automation and things like that that are going on there. I think likewise in terms of friend, I think absolutely it is our friend. I think we've talked along about the vision around how we can use AI in the fight, and that's looking at data at a scale we couldn't do before, using AI to look at data through the night to look for patterns, organized crime signals and gangs within the data itself. And I think there's a real opportunity to turn AI the other way as well in terms of creating so much white noise. In terms of interacting with the scammers, we've seen one of the mobile operators wasting time. We've got the opportunity to gather intel from that space as well. And I think that's going to be incredibly exciting, whether we can shut down the mule operations, for example, much earlier.
Thank you, Mark. And Yuri, can I bring you into that as well? You're seeing AI across the piece, but you also have a global perspective. And Metalisa, there's questions for how you see AI and are interfacing with it in the fraud prevention space as well. But we'll start with Yuri.
I know AI, and I love to hear Lisa's view on this as well. I know AI can protect us, but I've spoken to a few experts who say, well, yes, but we're not sure for how long. So I spoke to, for example, a company who specializes in recognizing fake voice scams. And they say at the moment we've got it under control, but we expect that in 2 or 3 years, it doesn't matter how good our AI will be, we will no longer be able to recognize fake voices because they're human. And I also spoke to a gentleman from Interpol very recently, and he is very concerned with a trend he sees where we used to have a lot of IT help desk support scams where people are calling you to help you with your problem or with an investment opportunity. And usually the voices of these people, you heard an accent and you were able to, well, you're not from the Netherlands or you're not from the UK. I'm not sure if I can trust this. They now know that there are some software is getting into the market where an AI is calling out massively. So you don't need people. You just need a server, which is way easier to hide than a call center full of people, and they don't have accents. They speak normally. So there, I'm not optimistic if AI will, for good, will be able to protect us from AI for bad. I think we need to do a lot more to protect people worldwide from scams. But I'd love to hear Matt's view on this. You're
Yeah.
on mute, Simon.
I'll bring Lisa in a second. Just to say, I was at an event very recently in Parliament where there was discussion of AI in fraud and lots of discussion around the need to better educate people to recognize fraudulent content. But the truth behind that is, of course, you can't teach people to recognize AI. That's its major benefit. What you need to do is educate people on how to receive and understand the content that is sent to them unexpectedly. So to treat it with caution, to treat it with skepticism, and not necessarily believe it to be genuine in the first instance. But Lisa, over to you.
Well, thank you. Simon, you said it. That was spot on. We need awareness. We need the training so that people are able to detect and to notice what's real, what's not, what has been made up by a machine and not a human. We have AI in our operations, and we have. But we see the need to attack the problem from different perspectives. I think the importance of utilizing ID proofing technology where we can authenticate the person being there, that it actually is the person that you're saying you are. I think that is going to be crucial moving forward. Whether that's utilizing biometric data or combining different data points.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm going to stick with you for a question that we've received in the chat around the importance of data sharing. So lots of discussion in the UK always around data sharing and how it's key to solving the scam issue, but really keen to get your perspective on it and how and where, I think specifically, it can work best.
Yeah, we have an example in from Norway that where during the last year we have the telecom companies in Norway have implemented a telephone shield, shielding Norwegian consumers from getting spoofed calls. And that has been truly effective. And I believe Norway was the second country implementing that shield in the world, where Finland was #1. So that's one form of data sharing, just showing the importance of it. And of course, there needs to be a regulatory landscape that allows us to share data between different sectors and actors in a more seamless way, an effective way. So that's why.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's roll back across the panel. So Yuri, your views on data sharing and how it's taken forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as you know, I mean, one of the initiative GASA is supporting is the Global Signal Exchange, where now about 1 million signals are shared every day by several of our members. I think data sharing is definitely part of the puzzle to fight scams, because scammers on purposely they spread their scams across the world, making very sure that they only scam a little bit in the Netherlands, a little bit in France, a little bit in the UK. And as long as they don't become too visible there, they can just continue. Um, and we do need to connect all the dots on a global level to see where are the scam hubs and then get after the scammer and catch them.
Thank you, Yuri. I'm going to bring Mark in now. Mark, we're a data sharing organization, but there's a question in the chat specifically around solutions that allow banks to notify other institutions when they identify a customer who's involved in or vulnerable to a scam.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, we have a number of solutions. I think you can probably split that into two things. If a bad actor is involved, then we've got information. Obviously, that would go to the National Fraud Database as normal. In terms of the victim, if someone's in the process of being scammed or has been scammed in the past, we have a number of different solutions. So we have Member Connect, which allows beneficiary checks in particular, which allows two of our members to have a conversation, either sending and receiving organisation to say we're suspicious that something's going on or we believe our customer is a victim of a scam. That stops a huge amount of fraud and enables that point in time conversation. If they have been a victim, we have something called the APB Victim Check Service, so members can load people into there that have been a victim of scams, enables other members to know, treat this person with care and look after them. And then to deliver that data into our members in real time, we have a tool called Vision, which is a customer monitoring tool, which will basically alert you to say, Simon's one of your customers and he has been a victim of the scam. So you can take push education, push messages. So yeah, a number of different ways we can help on that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. I want to touch now on the wider policy and regulatory landscape. Mark mentioned that the UK is widely anticipating a future fraud strategy in the coming months. Yuri, I know your organization has done a lot of work looking at how we create the conditions at a national level, but to be replicated globally to enable a lot of these initiatives to really take root and be successful. Because I think what the figures that you presented today really make clear is that whilst a lot of effort is being made and there's a lot of progress in many areas, the scam problem is just getting worse and enduring, and that actually a step change is needed. So if you were to sort of set out in 3 key points, what is needed at any national level to get ahead of a problem?
No.
What would it be?
I think many solutions are necessary. There is no silver bullet. One of the things, and actually, Simon, we worked together on this, is the National Anti-Scam Center paper we launched a month ago. We see that in many, especially in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, but also in Australia, they have set up a national anti-scam center. And I think that's a very good idea. So very concrete, in Singapore, they have the anti-scam command center, where in one room, physically, law enforcement, banks, telecom operators, social media sit together. And if a report comes in at the law enforcement officer, I just paid 50,000 Singapore dollars, but I think I've been scammed. The law enforcement officer can walk to the bank and say, could you please freeze this account? And then he can walk to the telecom operator and can you track this phone number? I really believe, and this is just an example, but because we see also, for example, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, they're centralizing victim support and making it easier for the victim to get help. So I think one of the recommendations we're pushing very hard for is that every country in its own way should have a central place where people can report a scam, get help, but also all the different stakeholders are working together to block, to prevent, or hopefully to arrest these kind of criminals.
So if you had to distill the National Scam Centre down into 3 key characteristics or 3 things that it does, how would you characterize that?
Ideally, central reporting. I mean, based on the research, I mean, and you have action fraud in the UK, but still people don't know where to report. And I understand it's confusing because you have to inform your bank, you have to inform the social media, where to go to. We get about 200 emails every day, and one of the most common questions is, should I report to the police in the country where I think the scammer lives, or should I report in my own country? And where do I report? So really clear reporting is crucial. And then ideally, the victim doesn't have to go shopping and, oh, I have to block my credit card. Oh, I have to change the password of my social media. He or she needs to have guidance. What do I need to do now to protect myself from losing more money or the scammer using my identity for other crime? So that's, I think, a second component, really be the spider in the web, coordinating action. And then three is really, and that's what GASA stands for, is working across all the industries together to share data, to identify the scam networks and catch the criminals. Because that's, I think, our major issue at the moment. According to the World Economic Forum, 0.05% of all cyber criminals are being prosecuted. That's nothing. And it basically communicates that scams are free crime. And unless we really start to catch scammers en masse, it will continue to grow and grow.
Thank you, Yuri. Mark, you have teams who are developing products to beat the scammers in the current policy landscape. If you had an ask of those policymakers, those regulators, that would make your life, the life of you and your teams, that much easier, what would it be?
I think it's confidence for organisations to share data. I think we have legislation and regulation that allows it, but interpretation is always the challenge. So I think clarity for organisations, it's okay to do this, I think would be really important. And obviously, I think we touched on it before. It's like ensuring that people are playing their part, ensuring that people are required to do this, to take active part in the sharing of data for fraud and scam prevention would be really important for me.
Thank you, Mark. I'm not going to ask you to comment on the detail of the UK political system, so don't worry. But if there was a lesson from any of the Scandinavian jurisdictions that Tietoevry Bank works across that you think should be applied in the UK, what would it be?
I need to think about that one for a second. I do know that the Nordics have electronic ID solutions that mitigate some vulnerabilities that I'm not too sure about in the UK.
We don't have one. It's a hot topic of debate at the moment. There is potential to launch one, and it'd be interesting to get your 30 seconds of your view of how that works in the Scandinavian nations. And I think, Mark, you may have views on what it may mean in the UK.
Yeah, I think it's an effective solution, at least in Norway, where we have technological capabilities where we can detect and stop fraudulent activities on those data before the consumer finds out that they have been scammed. So there are vulnerabilities, but they can be mitigated.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mark, you recently published a blog on this.
Around identity, yes. I think digital identity is going to be really important. I think the sharing of verification of people's identity obviously is going to be really important, and how we use that. So when they open accounts, stuff and around that, I think we just got to be careful. It's not the silver bullet. There's lots of challenges around identity, both in the UK and how you verify identity. We're using a travel document and a driving document at the moment primarily to verify identity, both that can be, obtained with little information to do there. So I think it is layers, but I think if we get to the point where we're confident we've got people's identity and we can create a really secure environment for people to transact. I think that's the ideal, but there's a lot of work to do still there for me.
Thank you, Mark. Yuri, do you have views on the value of ID protection and digital identity to fighting scams?
I think it's very important, but also, as you said, it's not a silver bullet. I'm a little bit surprised that if you want to open a bank account in most countries, you have to go through an entire vetting process, which I think is good. But if you want to open an online store or set up a server able to email 100,000 people every hour, no ID is necessary. And I think we need to work with the industry on how can we create proper KYC levels for the different services which are open to the public, to increase the bar for scammers. I mean, now it's too easy to some things are too easy, and we want to keep it easy, but it's really harming a lot of people at the moment. So I think we need to not only have proper KYC in the financial industry, we need have it across the board, depending on the level of harm which can be done.
Simon, and just probably to add, I think obviously, one of the big solutions we're working on is Just Me, which is the ID verification solution. I think what we do need to have in there, and I think it's really important, is putting the tools in the hands of consumers to be able to detect, to see what a text is. That a real text? Is it a deep fake video? What is that WhatsApp likely a trend? Because I think we can use that community then to get information back as well around what they're seeing every day. What's the new fake bank website that everyone spotted this morning that we can get that information in. So I think bringing that community of consumers into this as well is going to be really important.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. I said we'll wrap up at about 5:02, so we've got time for one more question. And this is almost a flip of what we've just talked about. It's looking ahead at emerging scam trends and things we should be thinking about into the new year. And indeed, if I'm gonna quote the question directly, it's looking almost at the next couple of weeks and what might happen this Black Friday. So your predictions for emerging scam trends and the things that we should all be on the lookout for. Yuri, would you like to kick off?
Well, I mean, in general, I believe investment scams will continue to grow and combined often with romance scams. But maybe give you a local example. I'm Dutch, and our government is considering making buying fireworks illegal. I know what the next scam is going to be. Buy your fireworks at very low prices online, and we will deliver it to your house. Scammers are great marketeers, and they will continue to surprise us with any disaster, any crisis happening in the world, and just go within hours set up the next scam. So we indeed I think Simon, you put it right. We need to really educate people on the operandi behind the scam, and not just say don't click on links.
And that's key to helping people not be socially manipulated in the first instance, isn't it? Metalisa, your scam predictions for the coming 12 months or near future?
Yeah, I think Black Friday won't have a large impact necessarily, but maybe the aftermath of Black Friday, we might see an increase. And sextortion, unfortunately, is a complex and increasing trend, where specifically young males are targeted on social media, and that's a heavy case.
I think a difficult subject and probably one for a whole different webinar. Mark, over to you.
Well, if I'm going to look in the next couple of weeks, predicting, Black Friday, we'll see the rise of more adverts for goods, really low price, urgency. That's how scammers operate, is create the urgency and the need. Black Friday's perfect time to do that. I think the other one that will be coming is the budget. So scammers will get around, as they did with winter fuel payments and other things like that. They'll react off the back of the budget. You need, here's a payment you could have got. Here's something you can do to move money. As you already said, investments, move your ISAs if you need to. They operate about what's in the news right now and what people are worrying about.
I think that's a very sage warning to us all, isn't it, ahead of announcements on the 26th of November. We are now at time, so my thanks to our audience for all of their questions, for giving up their time to us this morning. We hope you found it interesting. My thanks to Yuri Abraham, Managing Director of GASA, to Metalisa Engu, Head of Defence at Tietoevry Bank, and to Mark Courtney, Chief Product Officer here at Cifas. That's thank you from me, thank you from them, and goodbye.